Okay, so what I want to do is I'm not going to go over as many details, but you have I have a couple things to do without us. I can tell you the best way to improve your language and reading score is to read more. And I get some of you hate reading, and I understand that. If this test is really important to you, you're going to take it in March and April, or you're going to take it in April and June possibly. The more you read between now and then, the better you're going to do on the reading section and the grammar section, because you're going to be more used to the words and it's going to flow better. Like you're kind of greasing the skids. Like if you're an athlete or have ever played a sport, the more you practice a skill, the easier it is and the better you get at it. Even if it's reading a fiction book that you just kind of enjoy, just getting used to reading is huge. Join Khan Academy. You might be in there already, but go to khanacademy.org, join. There's tons of practices on there. When you're doing the math in 2 weeks and a week and a half, they're going to be doing a lot of stuff on Khan Academy, so you'll be on for sure then. And then if
Mr. Ruckel, isn't there also an app for Khan Academy where they can get like a daily question of the day or something that comes up?
Yep, that's number 4 here. Can you still see my screen?
Sorry.
Go away.
Sorry.
No, can you still see it?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah.
I wasn't reading ahead.
No worries. Yeah, and then if you go just in the App Store and write daily practice for SAT, it'll shoot you some SAT formatted question, whether it's in math or language or reading a day. But you just have to open it. It doesn't send you an alert. But that alone is easy. You can do it, when there's some downtime or you're just sitting around. Quick, minute or two, and it kind of just keeps you in the flow. 3 is the nonfiction reading strategy we're going to go over in next class, so hold off on that, and I can teach you that. And then if you really want to brush up your vocabulary, there's a site called vocab.com that's free that you could practice on, and that'll develop your vocab somewhat in the next couple months. So those are tips that you can do without us. This is all depending on your motivation level, obviously. So I know some of you are shooting for the stars, which is awesome. Some of you have a very kind of, this is my number, I just got to get this. So you kind of pick and choose, but these are the things to do to maximize your SAT prep. And then before we hop into grading, what we asked you to do, this is the grammar rules that are on the top of the convention sheet, the language sheet we gave you. This is kind of my cheat sheet version of it. So like, even if you took a picture of this, or you have access to this Google Slides in our classroom, but CS is complete sentence. So these are all the rules we went over yesterday. These are the main grammar rules for the most, it's not all the common rules, but it's all the other ones. So CS, complete sentence, comma, fanboy, complete sentence. That's your rule. Complete sentence, semicolon, complete sentence. No conjunctions. Then you have the complete sentence dash, it's just a word or phrase and it ends, or a complete sentence before the colon. Then it's usually a list on the SAT. Almost always that'll be a colon to be a list question, but they might chuck a word or phrase at you. So it's very similar to the dash, but they won't give you both answer choices, obviously. And then the more complex one that we did talk about more in detail yesterday is a complete sentence, semicolon, conjunctive adverb. Those are those fancy adverbs. Hence, therefore, however, with a comma after another complete sentence. So these are the sentence rules just in like a little cheat sheet version. So that's, when I made this, I have a ton of students say this is so much better for them. It's less words and this is an easy remembrance for you. So hopefully that kind of pulls together yesterday a little bit.
You guys, make sure you add this to your sheet that Mr. Ruckel gave you the other day, the Think Like a Writer sheet. Write these things down, because this is what you need to be successful on this. This makes it so simple. So definitely use it.
So that is, again, in case so on our classroom page, under classwork, the first link are these slides. So you can always go back to that. So everything's right there for you. Okay, so let's go to the packet that the language packet we worked in last time. We asked you to do passage 2 on it. We went over passage 1 last time. So let me say this. And I know it's possible some of you didn't get to it for whatever reason. I would, if you didn't do it, it's still effective. I would still circle the correct answer choices on here. And then later, like go back and reverse engineer it. So that's a really good way to learn, like figure out, well, if it's C, then why is it C? And go back and do that. And that's a great way to kind of pick up. It's a great way to learn it if you didn't do it ahead of time, I guess. Make sense? Sorry, I want to open it in Cami and I forgot about that. Once it's open, Mrs. Van Essen, do you want to go over it or?
Yeah, sounds good. I just got a few more people in.
Yep, I'm just waiting for it to open up here in Cami. I had it already, but I forgot I learned this cool new tool the other day.
Yeah, I haven't really used Cami much. So are we looking at Alexander's Empire of Culture?
We are.
Okay, cool.
So before she jumps into it, remember the strategy, read the title, because they sometimes ask you main idea or topic sentence questions. So just this alone could give you some hint about what it's about, and then answer questions as you go, remembering that sometimes the answer is past the underlined part. So read past it. And if you're still stuck, read a sentence or two past it, which we learned yesterday. Okay, you want to go over them and I'll mark
All
them?
right. So number 12 is B as in boy. Number 13 is A. Number 14 is B as in boy. Number 15 is B as in boy. Number 16 is D as in dog. Number 17 is C. Number 18 is A. Number 19 is B. There's one of those grammar rules we just went over. Number 20 is C. Number 21 is D. Number 22 is A. So go ahead and take a second to look over those questions with the answers now.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I missed 15 and 16. I'm sorry.
Sure.
No problem.
And I missed 12 and 13. So
All right, here, can you guys see my screen?
Yeah, we see it. Yeah.
Okay, so I circled them.
Yeah, so Josh, 15 is B and 16 is D.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And I'll just scroll back slowly over all of them in case anybody missed anything else while you guys are kind of looking over them.
So question on 19, why is it as he? Because I thought it would just remain he because there's a period prior to it and it's not like combining anything.
So here's the thing. I don't disagree with you. I think you could argue, would you answer A?
Yeah, because also I was also thinking like you guys say like the shortest response, and as in my opinion wasn't necessarily needed.
It is, but the problem with that, Danny, is that that is a comma splice right there. So do you see that on either side of the comma is a complete sentence? So do you see that?
Oh, so you mean that period after the however is a comma place?
So the comma, so it says in 19, it says he moved to these different parts of the world, comma, he brought Greek culture with him and his reign marks there. So what that is, that first comma right there makes it a comma place because there's two complete sentences on either side. Because of that, you have to adjust part of it. So the only way to do that is to put the as he, because
Okay.
that makes it a declarative, a dependent clause that goes into a independent clause.
Okay, thank you.
So, yeah, and so guys, when you see the punctuations in the middle, always like you have a comma there, and his thinking's not wrong, it's 100%
Right.
right. But it's, then read before it, and you go, oh, I have a complete sentence before it, oh, I have a complete sentence after. Well, we know from this cheat sheet, but I'll just project again, that, it went away, sorry. You know, you have to have a fanboy with two complete sentences, or a semicolon, or a conjunctive adverb with two complete sentences. And so none of those are our choices. So then you have to kind of make that first one a dependent clause like she talked about. So that's the strategy. Look at the punctuation, look on both sides, reference your cheat sheet, and then see which one it fits and what you have to do.
For 21, how come it would not be A? Because technically, isn't there a complete sentence on either side? So you could just put the semicolon.
21, you said?
Yes.
Okay. So for 21, this is so brace yourself for this. In an English class, you're 100% right. On an SAT test, they're messing with you because here's their thing. What is the most effective way to combine these two sentences? And you're thinking, which I think Danny said before, like it's about concise, right? Think concise. So anytime you can reduce the amount of words, the better. in the SAT world. And so based on those choices, the most effective way is to combine them, because combine thrive and is gets rid of a sentence break and makes it more concise in SAT world. I will be honest, it's a completely unfair question, but that's the tricky part, the most effective way. When I would say A is correct,
Yeah.
B is, or C is correct.
It is correct, but remember the goal is always to combine sentences. And with that semicolon, that still suggests a break in the thinking. And if it's unnecessary, then they're going to want to keep those together.
But don't you need a comma before fanboys?
Yeah, but it's not a fanboys. They're getting rid of it actually. What it is just a list now. It's listing two things.
Mhm.
It's continue instead of two, because it's not two complete sentences anymore. By doing thrive and is, you've gotten rid of the subject it, so it's no longer a complete sentence. So therefore it's not a fanboy. It's just combining two thoughts. Don't overthink this one, guys. This is not a very common SAT one, but every so often it's those key words, and it's this most effective thing. And I just think it's an unfair question, and sometimes you're going to run into those. All your guys' thinking is correct for the most part, but it's this most effective way, and they want to reduce the amount of sentences.
Mr. Reckles, I'm going to pop off quick and I'll be back in a few minutes.
All right. 12, Ryan, I see has a question. So I'm going to scroll back up. Now the study of the classics has disappeared from both high school college. Okay, so this is another one. It just flows better to say has disappeared from both, not both from. So both from is just clunky, and just the idea is it's disappeared from both. You wouldn't say both from, and that's kind of an idiom they call it. It's a regional thing, and there's really no rule that'll help you with that. It's A or B. Hopefully you narrowed it down to, and then I could see why I thought the other way, but I think if you had said it out loud, I don't think you would talk that way, and you would say disappeared from both of these, not both from these. All right, and then the last one we went over is 15, and then we're going to move on to the next part. So 15 is and we work on this in class a lot in our English curriculum, I know. It's a vague pronoun. So the word his is correct, but remember the rule. If you see a pronoun, find the noun that it's replacing earlier in the sentence. It has to be in the same sentence. And this is the beginning of the sentence right here. And so Pella is, if you read the thing, is a location. It's not a person. So his, we know if you read the article, right? His reply is referring to Aristotle. But in this sentence, Aristotle's not in this sentence. So it's a floating pronoun. We don't know who his, it could be Alex. Since you've got Alexander, you've got Aristotle, you've got King Philip in the same paragraph. And so his is vague. So you have to be more specific. If Aristotle was in the subject of the sentence somewhere, then A would totally be the right answer. But because it's not in the same sentence, it's too vague. That's a standard SAT one. Pronoun, same sentence. If it's not there, then you have to be more specific. If it's there, then make sure you match the number and the gender and so on. So I'm going to quickly, you've just did that one on your own, hopefully, to give you a sense of, I showed you this the other day before we go over a couple more rules and do more practice. Based on the score you're shooting for, remember, reading and writing are combined, right? To make an 800, and then math, non-calculated calculator 800 to combine together for 16. So college ready is the red, right? And then depending on the colleges you're looking for, and I projected those last class, they're in the slides. The writing and language, if you average 7 correct out of 11, you're sitting at around a 280. That's gonna, if you did that as well with the reading, you'd be right around that 1040 mark, 1060 mark. You'd be in a good spot. If you average 8, you did the same in reading, you're around 630, for half your test. So you kind of want to set your goal here for both sections based on the score you're looking for to kind of see if you're on track. It's just kind of a way to motivate and kind of track how well you're doing. Remember, 7 out of 11 is a 64%, but that's a good score on the SAT. So don't just think, oh, it's not a bad score. It's a lower percentage you're used to, but it's a good score on the SAT. All right, take a look back at that again, the note sheet. Again, we're trying to always think like a writer, think concisely, and then look for a single word that can change an answer choice or whatever. The other style of questions are the sentence order, sequence order questions, which we went over last time. We talked about paraphrasing each one and just trying to see, remembering what we talked about writing a topic sentence is broad, and then each sentence builds off that topic sentence, and they should connect to the one before it. Those are the ones that can be tricky, and those are the ones I would tell you that, my main rule yesterday was don't waste too much time on the ones that take a lot of time where you probably won't get right anyway. And if that's one you struggle with, try it, plug it in a few spots, and then just guess, circle it in your book, and then move on. Then it's time in the end, you can go back and spend all the time you want as long as everything's bubbled. But that's the strategy. Paraphrase, say, what is it doing, and then see where it might go. The other ones they love are this one. The writer's considering deleting the underlined sentence, or it could say the writer's considering adding the underlined sentence. These you'll see more often in the sequence questions. And this is the strategy for it. The simplest part of the strategy is look at the topic sentence of the paragraph they want to add or delete the sentence in. And if the sentence that they want to add or delete is talking about the topic sentence, then it belongs in the sentence. If it's not about the topic sentence, then you automatically know that you don't want it in the sentence, okay? So that's your first check. Just check topic sentence and figure out what the point of the passage is, and does this sentence enhance and support the point of the passage? If it does, it belongs. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Then figure out which yes or which no works best, okay? And then you guys can read the rest of these, but other ways to do it. But that seems to be the most efficient and effective way to do they want to add or delete a sentence. And then you do have these other specific grammar skills we just went over and reviewed for you to continue to learn. The better you know those, if you were going to get wrong. Here's our positive phrase again. Just as a reminder, you have what's going to be a noun or noun phrase that's going to almost always modify the noun right before the 2 commas or 2 dashes. The key is if you take it out of the sentence, does it still make sense, and does it still continue the tone of the passage? And if it's yes, then you separate it by commas or dashes. Cut it out. If not, then you don't separate it by it and you keep it. It's not a positive phrase. It's just a noun phrase that fits. They love a positive phrase. The more you see in the better you're going to get. I want to show you this. What they're going to probably do is just underline what I have highlighted there. They won't underline the whole phrase. They'll usually underline the beginning of it with 1 comma or the end of it with 1 comma or 1 dash. And then you have to kind of zoom out to look at what are they doing. They won't just like I have it underlined like this. There's no way you'll see it that way. You'll only see half of that underline. So you'll have to kind of look out farther to do that. The other one they like a lot are parallel structure. They'll often pair this with a colon question because you have a complete sentence, colon, and a list. So this is parallel structure. The first one's correct. I went running, walking, and biking. Like they all end in ing. What's not parallel structure is I went running, walking, and went for a bike ride. Now I know it says the same thing, but it's that rhythm and then ing, the ing, or it could be ed, or whatever, or a short phrase or an infinitive, an infinitive, an infinitive. Like just make it consistent in your list, and it'll almost always be tested in a list like this. And you just want to make sure that the list has the same verb form or the same structure. Okay, and this is how they'll trick you. They'll do something like this, which sounds 100% right, but technically it's this. We've done the always simplify short, and that's your rule. We've talked about the pronoun antecedent, right? Find the pronoun, find the noun it's replacing, make sure they match. And if there isn't one in the same sentence, then it needs to be more specific. And then we did subject verb agreement last time as well. If a verb's underlined, this is a different trick. Look at the verb, look at the subject, which is the noun or the thing the sentence is about. That's the naming part. They're naming what the verb's telling us what they're doing. The verb and the subject need to be, if they're both singular, it needs to be singular. If they're both plural, they need to be plural. That's your matching. If it's confusing because you don't know some of the linking verb tricks, look at the other verbs in the same paragraph around it. And if they all end in ed, then yours should end in ed because of that consistency is important. So that's a trick if you struggle on some of the verb tense. Find the other verbs in the same paragraph, not different paragraphs, same paragraph. And if you match the tense, you're going to be right most of the time. So those guys, this sheet, this is all the grammar you need to know for this SAT test. Now I know it's a little more complex than that, but if you just study the sheet well and have a good understanding of these style questions and of these grammar rules, you're going to be, that alone is going to improve your test score. And then following some of the strategies. So questions on that?
Is this on Google Classroom?
It is. It's in the packet you should have received. If you didn't pick the packet up, it's on Classroom under language. It's if you can see my screen under language, rules and strategies right there.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Are we gonna have a cheat sheet like this writing one for the reading and the math ones too, that we can study?
Yeah, you already, so if you guys have picked your packet up, you have, the math has all the formulas for you and they've got all kinds of notes in there too. And all these, all the math, all the resources for the whole course are on here already. So all the math stuff's on here. If you want to get ahead of that and look at some of that stuff, that's after next week. The reading, we're starting Tuesday. There's 2 reading tests you've got materials for. And again, if you didn't pick up your packet, I have to take them out of the vestibule tomorrow. So at noon, and I'll do it at like 1 o'clock, 1:30 tomorrow. I got to take them all out. So if you don't have it, you got to get it by tomorrow, because you need to mark it up on the reading test. So if you have an ability using Kami to mark it up, that's fine. But the strategy for the reading test, the key strategy is those paired questions where it asks you to answer a question, then the next question is what quote supports that. I have a strategy to help you get those right far more often than not, but you have to mark your test up to do it. So that's why we want you to pick it up or have some marking technique. But the strategy for that, there's 2 screencastifys here. We're gonna go over them live Tuesday, but if you missed or you're not sure, here's how to do the vocab questions and here's how to do those command of evidence questions. There's short screencastifys for help, okay? And then I'll add we'll be going over those strategies that'll help you. Other questions? Okay, so in your packets, go to questions 23 to 33. It says, brother, can you spare dime? We're gonna do 9 minutes. Follow these strategies, use your cheat sheet. Go ahead and use your notes to help you remember these things if you want. Pace yourself. Remember, if it's really difficult, don't try it, and then circle it so you remember which ones you guessed at. If you don't have packets, just write the answer as like on a piece of paper, write the letter so you know where you're at. Again, you're shooting for probably a minimum of a 6 or a 7 to be kind of in that college readiness ballpark. So that's kind of a minimum goal for you to help you along. Okay, so start now and we'll come back at like 3:04, 3:05. That'll wake you up. If you're not done, finish up real quick or make a good, strong guess. Okay, so 23, Ms. Vanessa, you want to do these? You want me to do them?
Yep, I'll do them. So 23 is C. There we go. 24 is D. Mr. Ruckel, will you underline specific information in the prompt too? That's a good one to underline. Number 25 is D. I'm guessing we'll talk about that one. Number 26 is A. Number 27 is C. Number 28 is A. Number 29 is B. Number 30 is B. Number 31 is C. Number 32 is C. And number 33 is B.
So I'm going to scroll back up over them very slowly. So if anybody missed any, I'm going to go backwards here. You can kind of go back and see them as I scroll back to double check anything you might have missed. And then in the meantime, double check any ones you want to talk about and dump them in the chat or shout them out once we're done.
Are there only 11 questions per section?
Yeah, 4 sections, 11 questions each. So it's 44 questions in 35 minutes.
Got it. Thank you.
Like I said earlier, most students, time's not as big of a problem here. The ACT test, time's a huge issue, but the SAT, especially language, isn't that big of a problem for most students. But you still gotta, move along, I guess is my point. All right, so we do have a question for 24 and 25 right now, but so you want to do these, Miss? Well, I can do 24. You want to do 25, Miss Vanessa?
Sure.
So 24, it's just like it's funny because I underlined that in my packet to remind you. This is because they want specific information. So that means they're telling you here they want more details, right? So our concise rule might be varied here a little bit because they want specifics. And the only things that's very specific here that ties is actually listing the authors. And that's based on your answer choices, that's the most specific one. So it's really that phrase is what changes your answer choice probably.
And remember, if you're going to state a claim like that, notable exceptions, they're going to want to know what notable exceptions there is. What an example of a notable exception. Do you want to go to 23 since we saw that, since it's on the same one? So 23 is C.
So 23 is active versus passive voice for the most part, guys. And I don't know how much you've had a background on that, but they want writers to write an active voice. That means, in essence, that concept of subject verb, where the subject is doing the action, not that the action is taking place to the subject. Hope that makes sense. I'll be honest with you, I've taught English for 26 years and it's a confusing concept for me sometimes too. So it is more of an advanced grammar skill. But what they have is today's experience of culture is shaped by, instead of the novels are shaping the experience, instead of the experience being shaped by. So the one in there is passive, the C is active, where it's subject, dime novels, verb, shaped, and that's kind of the active versus passive thing.
Well, and think about the fact that this whole passage is all about dime novels. And so to put that at the end of the sentence lessens its value, or it's important. That's why you might want to put it at the beginning of that phrase. So let's go back to 25. So this is one of those, and you're going to see this again with elements of like appositive phrases and such, but when things are essential, because you're going to build on that, because it talks about how the novel Uncle Tom's Cabin is a serial novel about the abolitionist periodical, and then it talks about the fact that it was the first like American bestseller. It shows it's really important. So because of that, it's so important that we know the title of the book. So when you have something that's really important like that, you don't want to put commas around it in any way. And so that's why it's D with no commas. The novel Uncle Tom's Cabin had been an enormously popular serial number. Does that make sense?
So basically what you're saying is when it's something of importance, like Uncle Tom's Cabin, you don't put any commas around it?
Correct.
We have 26 and 27 and then 30, but we're right here for 26 and 27.
Okay. All right, let's see.
This one
is
is
26 and then.
Yeah, this one's, this passage is a little more challenging. There's a lot more usage type questions, like writing questions, and fewer grammar ones. It's not always going to happen. Like you saw, the one before was more grammar related, and they're going to kind of mix them up like this, just so you know. So this is kind of a little tougher section than the other one probably could have been for you.
Now remember, if you guys understand the idea of a dime novel, that's where something comes out in pieces as opposed to all together. So that's why that specific information, the beginning of it, it's talking about how Uncle Tom's Cabin was serialized, and then it evolves into talking about how it changed into an actual book and the value of that actual book. So that's why in 26, A is correct, because it talks about specific information that clarifies the subject of the sentence, which is that for an actual book. It shows a change. All right, number 27. Number 27. When I was reading this one, I was going through it and I added 27 at the end. And as I was reading it, it felt really random. That suddenly at the end, you talk about the power of this book. It's an actual book, and it showed that Americans really care about literature. And then it randomly throws in this information about how much money Americans make. So right away, I knew that it was probably going to be no. So then from there, I had to decide between C and D. And the fact is it was a bestseller. So D is not correct because it wasn't about wealth. If they wanted to read the book, they were going to pay for the book. So that's why the answer is C.
And strategy wise, this is the strategy we went over right before we did this. This is that, right? That question of the writer's considering adding or deleting. They want adding in this case, right? So I said your one strategy on this is look at the topic sentence and does the sentence they want to add or delete belong? And the topic sentence, things started to change around the Civil War. That alone doesn't talk about anything about income from men or anything. So right off the bat, it doesn't fit the topic sentence. So then you have to figure out which no is best. So you know right off the bat, you can knock out the yeses because topic sentence doesn't have to do with income from men. So that's one quick way to eliminate two of your answer choices by checking that topic sentence.
Yeah.
Can you go over 30?
Sure. So number
Right.
30, this is the one with Billy the Kid and Wild Bill Hickok. This is the one where the key to this says deleting the names and what effect would it have. So you have to decide if you should keep or delete it. Now, if you look at this paragraph, this last paragraph, it's talking about how there's a transformation. Okay, so this paragraph here is about how because of these dime novels, there was a transformation. And part of transformations is this transformation of identity. So that's why it's B, because they demonstrate the transformation from dime novels to full novels, and then also the influence of these novels from these real people to these folk names. So it goes back to the idea again that it changes the idea of that transformation is seen throughout this, and that's why B is correct.
And then last one is we have a cross for 32, and then we're going to move on to the last passage.
Perfect. Mr. Ruckel, can you tell us if there's a strategy for that? What I did when I was looking through this is I put it in each place and figured out which one sounded better. So is
Yeah,
there a
it's-
strategy to that?
That's it. It's just like that sentence order one. It's kind of tedious and it'll eat up your time. So this is a little less time because it's within the same sentence, right? So you should just keep plugging it exactly where it's telling you to and figure out which way. And oftentimes you can do that and then it'll just read it out loud in your head, so to speak. And I think you'll hear, at a minimum, you'll hear which ones sound really bad and you can eliminate them and then at least reduce your answer choices from there.
Going back to number 28, Ryan, I see you've got number 28. That is a verb tense question. So when you look at that, you know, because it says in the sentence published, which tells us that it is past tense. So you know you need a past tense option. That gets rid of B and C because those are present tense options. D, and again, I'm not great at this, but Mr. Ruckel, isn't that passive tense?
Yeah, it's like I think it's like
Passive voice?
I think it's actually more like a future tense, would have become, like someday it would have. So it's like a
Okay.
present perfect tense thing. That's really complex grammar stuff. But like you said, you have past, and even if you stuck with the concise rule, would become and would have become, would becomes more concise. So even if you didn't know the rule, that strategy will get you there.
Yeah. As far as 33 goes, Logan, I see your question on that. Part of that is knowing the vocabulary. So going back to what Mr. Buckle showed you at the beginning with that vocabulary.com, really important. There's going to be vocabulary words on here you're going to need to know. And so the key to this one is that not. So you have to know what paradigm is, all of these different words to know which one doesn't fit. And that is why B is correct, because it is not talking about the integration. It's talking about how there's a shift instead.
So these not questions will eat your time a little bit, but the strategy is this. And let's just assume you know all the definitions of the words for this point. And you read through, and whatever one is correct, read for the ones that are right. And as soon as you know it's right, then cross them off. And then it's a little less confusing because then you'll know whatever's not right is your answer. It doesn't trick your mind that way so much. So you cross off the right ones, and then you're left with that's the strategy for those. That is, I think, it's really easy to get tripped up by those. And even though you read not, you end up writing in one of the right answers because it tricks your mind.
Mhm.
I spent so much time on this question, but I just realized I didn't read the word not. So I was
Yeah.
trying to figure out between which A, B, or AC or D, which one would fit best. Now I kind of feel sad, but it's fine. I could have
Well-
gotten that right too.
Well, dude, the
Yeah,
point
I
is
put
that
B first.
better to do it here, right, than on April 13th or whatever.
Yeah,
So,
right.
and they are good about doing the not in all caps. So that should jump out at you. And now that'll
Yeah.
tell all of you guys to kind of be a little more alert for that.
Yeah, well, now that I messed up, I probably won't make the same mistake not reading it as not, but yeah. I don't know.
100%. I'm a big believer in you learn more from your mistakes than anything else.
Yes,
So I
yes.
100% agree with that. All right. So to finish today, we have 13 minutes left, which is enough time to do one last passage. So I'm going to say a couple things before you start. One is I'm recording these sessions, but I don't have your faces on there, just so you know. And I'm going to put them on our closed classroom page for kids who miss sessions and want to go on there. So I'm going to put the first session on and there's parts of them, just so you guys know. But I have made sure that nobody's face is on there, just so everybody's comfortable with that. So if you do miss one, then you can always go back and check the recording the next day if I don't have it up the same day. Okay, so that's just another resource for people who are in the classroom only. It's restricted to you guys, just so you know. Okay, so 9 minutes. So we're gonna go until like 3:27, and you're doing the last 11 questions, 34 to 44.